Today's guest is Tamara Caulder Richardson. She is an evidential psychic medium, channeler, and 6-time near-death experiencer. She is also the author of the book Love from Heaven. And we are going to talk about those 6 NDEs today. Tamara, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you giving me some time today.
Oh, Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I've really appreciated seeing your show, and thank you for having interest in this topic.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we get into your NDEs, I just want to say I really love your glasses. Those look really cool.
Oh, thanks. You know, it's funny. I'm still trying to figure out what the lights with these darn glasses, but when I have to read or need things, I definitely need them. But I'm a Elton John kind of girl. I like the crazy glasses.
Yeah, they're cool. I mean, you're probably like me. I never needed glasses in my whole life until about the last 5 or 6 years ago. It's just my vision started going downhill with age.
Right. I know that sucks. But the good news is, as you get older, your eyesight gets better. But now I like them because I don't really have to have them. Maybe night driving, but or small print. But I kind of like them now.
That's great.
It's kind of like a piece of accessory. Yeah. So thanks.
Yeah. Yes. Accessorizing. I like that. All right. Well, my audience are really into NDEs. So, and you've had 6. So let's start with the first one. When was that and what happened?
Most of my NDEs that I will talk about were in childhood. And you'll notice that people that are older that have them, that are younger, they don't, how do I say, I didn't have to adjust as much because it was always normal to me, especially the after effects. The first one, I didn't even really realize it was an NDE till I read PMH Atwater's book on, she's written several books, but she's basically a child NDE specialist. And the first one was a prenatal. And I do have memory of not being born and looking above my mom's stomach, and she was miscarrying me. And it was a really not a pleasant scene. It was kind of graphic. And I remember sitting outside of the window and describing everything, what everybody said. And I felt so bad because she was so pretty and so young. And I just felt bad for her. I didn't feel, but it was interesting that I wasn't in the stomach. Some people say, oh, when you're born, are you in the stomach? I find spirit is usually around, the body, the mother. Which can be problematic. That's why you want to make sure you say pleasant things, around the child because they're around. But, sometimes, when someone's in the womb, they hear everything. Everything's a perfect recording. So if you're named after, like your mom or your dad and you go, oh, you're a jerk, then sometimes the person grows later think it's them, but they weren't talking to them, but they literally hear everything. And I have a whole thing on that, but it was just observing. And then but that took a while to piece together because that was an odd one.
Before you get to the second one, because it sounds like you're going to the second one. So, did you find out about this like many years later being hypnotized or something?
Yeah, many years later. Yes, it started coming out in pieces. And so I got basically regression and it came right out.
Okay.
It was like probably 4 hours of stuff. It was a lot.
Wow.
It was, it was about 4 to 6 hours worth of stuff. It was, so, it was there. And then matter of fact, my other eye saw it in pieces too, because here's the thing, when you have an altered experience, it doesn't really fit in this world. So you don't know what to do with it. So I just want to get to the bottom of this. So I got regression on that. And then because running these, they came right out, full detail, because then I could put all the pieces that were coming, that I saw this and that and this and that. Then I automatically started going past life. So I've done like 300 hours of past life too.
Oh, wow.
Puts this whole NDE thing into perspective.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So then you had the second one. When was that one?
Yeah. And that one is the one that I think starting from there is pivotal. So I had 3 in a row when I was age 3, 4, and 5. So when I was 3, I was playing at I was 3 years old at my cousin's house. It was her grandmother's. It was a very big antebellum house. And we were running around, we were playing hide and seek. And it's funny because I was recalling this the other day, and I was a little nervous about playing hide and seek because I could already see spirit. So I didn't really like hiding because the spirit people were everywhere, and I was like, I don't know if I like this, because I didn't know in this house who these people were. But anyway, we were playing hide and seek, and my cousin was counting, and we had family somewhere in the house. It was so big, but I'm jumping and squealing, and under the dresser and I don't know what it was doing there. It was a nice house, but under the dresser was a nail hammered in, and so when I jumped, it pierced through my skull. And it was in the nail head end, not the pointy end. And so I immediately touched my head, and then I thought it was water. And then I looked, and then I passed out. At that point, I immediately popped out, and I was looking as an observer point of view above my body. And I, just like you hear, out of body, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the body like, what's going on? And I was sort of mildly interested. And they go, oh, what happened? And people ran because I guess maybe I let out a scream. And they came to look. And as they're looking at me and wondering what to do and what's going on, no one really knew because I had hair. They didn't realize, but it did pierce through my skull. Matter of fact, it took 2 years for my skull to grow back there. So if, as far as connecting to spirit, that's a sure way to do it because your crown chakra, that bam, really did it. So I wouldn't recommend that, but that did happen. And as I'm watching this, there is the best that I can tell you, it was not human. It was, it felt holy. So an angelic being, but it was more in the shape of like an angel, but it was all light. It was, glowy, and it looked like sparkles in it. So now I think about the white, it's different than the white light, but it was golden, this being. And I didn't really sense a male or a female, but it was over my head as though it was healing it. Now I understand as healing it, because it was over my head, but this being was about 10 feet tall. And then I'm watching this, and I'm turned behind me, and I'm seeing up this stairwell. I'm seeing, well, they keep popping in, and it's a lot of them, but they're beings of light, and they weren't big like this. They felt like people, and they were popping in, and then more kept coming in. Like there was a bunch of them, like 100, and then they started filling up. And then I'm thinking, well, I'm 3 years old. How many people do I really know? So who were these people? Who knows? They could have been people that I've, know on the other side, known in past lives. But then I heard of, I say heard, it was an all permeating feeling, knowing, hearing. It was like it just went through my core. It wasn't like it's hard to explain. It was telepathy, but it was very powerful telepathy, very powerful. It wasn't like I heard a word, Tamara. It wasn't like that. It was like a really powerful telepathy, and it was a shaking to my bones. And it said, this is not your time. You have much to do. And as soon as that voice came, I was back in my body and felt all the pain. And then my mom was there. My mom's like, she'll be fine. She just hit her head. She's a young mom. And then they decided to call my grandmother, who was the matriarch. And I was like, oh, holy hell broke out when she showed up. And so she ended up taking me, her and my grandfather to, this is back in the day, the back door of her internist. She knew a lot of people. And she said, you've got to see her. And he said, I had a contusion. He said, just to watch to make sure her head didn't swell. Well, I got medical terms and everything doing this regression, all these different medical terms that I didn't know about, which was really interesting. So, she did, watch me. Strangely enough, it didn't affect me as far as, for as any mental, retardation or any kind of development, nothing like that. So that was kind of amazing in itself, but it was an open hole, because what are they going to do with the skull? They kind of just have to let it grow back.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was definitely seeing spirit people, but I didn't see it as scary because I was spirit, quite honestly,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, the first thing that brings to mind is, and I'm not sure when it actually closes, but you have a little hole on the top of your head. They call a
Hmm.
fontanelle, that space, and I don't know
Yep.
if it closes at about 3 or 5. So maybe that, and you had mentioned right off the bat that you felt liquid. You didn't use the word blood, so maybe
It
somehow.
was it was a lot of blood.
Oh, it was blood then. Okay, because I
Yeah, it
thought
was a lot of
maybe
blood.
you kind of hit right in that spot and it
I
in
did.
that space, and
And
it
it
kind of
pierced
like,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
So
and it's weak there, and maybe it wasn't fully
yes,
ossified, so
that's
maybe
it.
something like that happened. But
That's exactly right. It was still, so I was still young enough that it was soft but it pierced through that.
mm,
And it was, I mean, it was about a dime, and not quite a dime size, a little smaller than that, but it was a pretty big, I mean, it was a hole. And I think that it was because it wasn't hard like an adult.
mm,
And yeah, and so that it was a lot of blood, but that's just what had to happen. But that's what all our skulls have to do, right?
yeah,
They have to grow.
well, they eventually, yeah, all fused together. Um, so when you say you saw spirit, when you see spirits, I'm sorry, um, do they look like a ghostly human being that's kind of transparent, or do they look solid? What do they look like, or do they just feel, or do you just feel energy around you and hear their voices telepathic?
Well, in this case, afterwards, I would physically see them, and they were solid.
Okay.
They looked like us,
Hmm.
and they were really friendly. The ones that they were just like us, they just
Hmm.
looked just like us. I actually did not know they were dead people for a long time.
Okay.
And so, um, so then that kind of leads into my next, the India, because they're like kind of back to back. But yeah, they look like us, so I
Hmm.
didn't know what the problem was. They looked exactly, and more show up to help when I was 4. But my mom, I don't think she was a little unsettled by this. You know, that I would see this. I didn't know that that was something was wrong with that,
Hmm.
because they seemed very nice. They're just like me and you.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they look like a solid to me. But maybe it's because, as a little girl, it would have been frightening if they showed up like an orb with a head in it or something.
All
It would
right.
have, I wouldn't have like, I would have freaked me out. Like, I don't understand that.
Right.
So they were, seemed to be very kind and acted like helpers.
Mm. I'm sure your mom would probably be thinking, "Oh no, my child's talking. She's talking to imaginary friends," and then she probably feels guilty, like she's doing something wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. We never really had that conversation. She always said I was odd.
Hmm.
But, whatever odd means, I think this is our normal state. I think that
Hmm.
we are spirit. We
Hmm.
are spirit.
Sure.
I mean, this is our vessel. We're not here that long. We are actually, interdimensional. We are eternal spiritual beings, we have so many capabilities. And so when we look at, so to me, that's why I really like spirit people, because that's what we are, right?
Yeah.
That's what we are. And usually the ones that have crossed over, that are in the higher realms, heaven, whatever you want to call it, they're a lot nicer than we are, because they don't carry the baggage. They're like, yeah, well, they're just like so chill. And
Hmm.
they have such a humility about them, and they just come in such a love flow. It's not so much like that always here. You people have baggage or misemotion. So I seem to like them right away. But it began seeing more of that on my fourth NDE. But it was a little, sometimes it was unsettling, because I couldn't understand what people were doing in my bedroom that late at night.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be odd.
Because I didn't understand. They were friendly, but I didn't understand what they were doing there. And they go, "Oh, we're just checking on you." I was like, "Okay." I just couldn't. I didn't understand that, but I didn't say anything, because I did know not to say something. I did know that. I knew
Hmm.
that that would be strange, so I knew not to say something even very early on. But when I was 4, I think that was even a bigger one. My mom was seeing this fella who later was my stepfather, who was in radio and broadcast,
Hmm.
and he was at the time. He was a disc jockey at a radio uh, channel what was it? Not WKIX. Well, it was in Hickory.
Mm-hmm.
And they planned a date, and they wanted to include me because she had me very young. So now she had me 18, and now she's 23, 24. So we went out to go eat, and it was a really bad day. It was snowing and icy, and it was just a cold, kind of dangerous day. You really should not go out. And so we were living with my grandmother and granddaddy at the time, and they had, a big house, big Victorian house. And my grandmother was trying to talk us out of it. Of course, later, I found out she had a lot of intuitive abilities and so forth, but please don't go and all that. But he pulled up, we got in the car, and I remember we went to eat at Pizza Hut. And then afterwards, we got some ice cream, and then we went by his station because he had to pick some things up, and he said, you can pick some free LPs out. So I was like, cool. Of course, I like the Monkees, so I had to get the Monkees. And it was funny because I also picked this strange song that is kind of part of history, but and I was not raised Catholic or anything. I don't really, I think Catholics are great, but I didn't know anything about that. But it was a nun that was singing the Lord's Prayer. So I brought that home. And later on in life, when I felt fearful, and that's another story, that would happen, I would play that. And then it kind of got into it really ministered to me or what have you. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, so we went on this date, and they got in an argument at the station because she wanted to be married, and he wasn't ready yet. He wanted to make more money. And so when we left, they were yelling. And so he put on the brake, spun around, hit a tree. And the tree, everything was snowing. It was a very small, I guess if you want to call it like a park looking area right there where you would walk around. And then behind us was an old fire station. And so when we had the impact, immediately I was not in a car seat. This is pre-car seat days. Mm-hmm. And so I was on this, it was like an old Pontiac. And I went right, and it's a really big windshield. So I went right, I got with a lot of impact, and I was 4 years old, right into that windshield. And so when it hit, it fractured my face in different places. I've had a couple surgeries later as an adult to keep removing cartilage out of my nose. So as soon as I hit the impact, I was really, really cold and wet feeling. But I couldn't understand why it was wet because I knew I wasn't wet. And then I was in that tunnel they talk about. It felt like a tunnel. It was like, I was confused because I felt really cold and really afraid initially. Just remember, if that ever happens, immediately after that, you usually don't care because I've been through this a few times. So that lasts a second. So I'm in this tunnel, and it's dark, but it's not scary. It's a tunnel. It just feels like I'm being pulled. What I think it is now, after thinking about it a lot, I think it's a portal. Yeah. I think it's a portal, and people call it wormholes, whatever. It's some kind of a dimensional portal. That's what I think. And so I'm being sucked down this thing, and I'm just observing, and it's not dark, scary. It's just dark. And I'm confused. And then I see in the distance something coming toward me, and it was Jesus. And he had his hands stretched out, like the pictures you've seen of him before. And he had the marks in his hands. He had the holes in his hands, and he's coming toward me. He had his hair blown back. Saying this, my grandmother talked a little bit about, I don't know if I ever went to church. We didn't really talk about it. She talked about Jesus sometimes. So I knew who he was, but my mom, no. And the guy she ended up married, he was pretty much an atheist. So no, but I knew who he was. And behind him, I knew those people. Although in this life, I wouldn't have known, but yet I knew who they were. I was related to them in family. And he said I had to go back. Well, at this point, I'm like, I just felt so much love that I was like, well, I don't want to. And he was really he wasn't mean, but he was really serious. He goes, you can and you will. And I was like, and he goes, but I'll always be with you. And I was like, okay. But when that happened, right beforehand, there was, it was a year before that there was a egg that I had found, but I thought it was a ball because I'm a kid. And I bounced it, and I didn't realize it's not a ball. A bird was in it. So I was so brokenhearted. I heard a wife. And what they did behind me, they said, we've got your bird. It's okay. So I thought that was like the coolest thing. But as soon as he said, you have to go back, I was back in that situation. Like I was back in the body, and I was confused. I could see that my mom was holding me, and I could see these good old boys that were pulling on the driver's side, pulling. That's what got dented in and wedged in this big tree. They were trying to pull it out. They had these old Wagoneers, with the wood on it, and the Jeep Wagoneer. They were trying to pull their Jeep, it was this Pontiac. They're trying to pull it out of the tree, and they had chains. And I'm watching that. And then I'm looking to the right on the passenger side where my mom is holding me, and I'm seeing this to be a massive angel, and it looked fiery red and yellow and white. And I say it, I could say her, I could say him, it to be called Uriel, which later on, much later on as an adult, like probably in my 30s, I found out that was actually an archangel and it means the fire of God. I did not know any of that or whatever, but most of my life I knew, Uriel was with me, but I'm not like little, that was before the whole Disney, not Ariel, but Uriel. And so there was like a rip in the universe where you could almost see, again, different dimensions. So there was like a rip in the universe. So I'm seeing layers of things going on. And as I look across into the park, I'm now seeing into different time periods. I'm seeing a Native American man and woman with a baby, and they're cooking fish over a fire with stones, and it's on a stick. And then I'm seeing, it looks like a Gibson girl, a man with a top hat, and there's a buggy, and they're walking through the park. So these are obviously two different time periods. And then I'm seeing a hot air balloon in the sky. So I'm seeing different time periods happening the same time. This is happening, which is this, I guess when would this be? Maybe late 60s. So not that time period. And then I'm seeing the rip in the universe. And then I look behind me, and I'm seeing all these spirit people, and I could see them. They look just like us. So imagine it looked like a time period movie, and some of them look like the 40s. And these guys, and they had fireman outfits, but they looked older. Like they were older style. And then some women they looked like the 30s and 40s, and they were a lot, like, I don't know, maybe 300 to 500, quite a bit. And a lady leans her head in the driver's side, but no one can see her but me. And she introduces herself. And then she said that that my grandmother knew her mother, and grandmother would shop at her mother's jewelry store. And she told me, the name escapes me right now. She told me her name, is in my book, told me the name. And then behind me in the seat, there were three people. There was a Catherine, and there was and there were two other people, and I knew them to be relatives. I'm still trying to figure out who the third one is, but I did find out that Catherine, she looked like 9 years old. However, I found out my grandmother did have a sister that died, but she died as a baby. But on the other side, they do grow up some. So, and there was some great aunt that was also in the back seat. I'm trying to find out who this third one is. But so that went on. So in between dimensions, and I was in a lot of pain. Through that, I opened up something, because I could see angels and I could see demons after that. And I could spirit people, and I could see spirit people, and I could see ghost people right after that moment from now on.
It's interesting that you vocalize it as it was like a rip in the universe or something, like it was something that happened to the universe. But my curiosity is, was it you that were stuck in between different dimensions?
Well,
And
I
nothing
still am,
was.
Jeff.
I'm not saying there was
This
nothing
is
wrong.
why I'm not right.
Oh.
Yes, well, you picked up on it. Yep, you're sharp. That's exactly right. And which is why I never really fit in after that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Something happened to my own spirit. And because um, because I was now really, as I was spirit. So I was really spirit 3 times when I saw the baby body being formed, and then I'm with the now, and now here I'm again. So the woman, what she did say, she goes, "I'm Judith Hafner." That was her name. She said, "You're the one who carries our voices," and they're going. Well, I didn't know what she meant till later on, but we are spirit. I mean, we literally are. We literally are. It's just most people can't see between those dimensions. So the way I look at it is this: it's because time periods, and in my 5th one I see also different time periods. I think it's this. I think that it's like a velvet cake. There's layers. There's layers. Right now we see this layer.
Right.
But I think there could be, now this is really I can't prove this, but why not? With those layers, sometimes they overlap. And so we think time is linear. I'm not sold on that. Because it is in this moment and then it's gone. So we're here only in present time, as far as which really you begin to ask time travel or you get into this whole thing. But I think that there have been probably many 1800s. There's been many 435 BCs, and it could be different dimensions overlapping. I was saying, people say it's a ghost. I think it's much more sophisticated than that. I think I was seeing life happening at different time periods at the same time. I really do. I don't think it was a recording. I think it was much more sophisticated than that. I think that there's life going on at different time periods, but we're unable to get to that dimension.
Yeah. If you have a radio, right, especially old school radios before digital came in, there's all these different radio frequencies, and if you just tune into the frequency, you got a rock station. And then if you start tuning into something else, you may get country station. They're all there. We can't see these radio waves anywhere, but they're all there bouncing around everywhere.
Great example.
Yeah, so maybe we can just kind of tune in when we hit the right frequency into different dimensions.
Well, and the other thing is we are all walking portals. So I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I want to get to some really good stuff. So keep that little dimensional thing in mind, because that's something I know I saw it 100%. I know it was there. What does it all mean? I can only give you conjecture what I think that means. I have seen ghosts before, and that's not what these look like. Ghosts look like, to me, they are stuck in their etheric body. We have free will, and some don't want to leave. Maybe I don't know. Sometimes there's confusion. You go, why would there be? Well, people are confused in life. And then all of a sudden they drop their body. You think they get wise? No. Sometimes they just want to stay for usually misemotional reasons, like they're sad or they're pissed because they died or whatever. But when I see them, I've seen them doing shows on stage. I do convention centers, like women's expos, and I saw one once in the back, and I'm like, God, do I tell people this? And I saw 2 people dressed it was Williamsburg, and I was in Virginia. I was probably 30 minutes from Williamsburg. And they were at a freaking convention center, these ghosts. And I knew they came with someone and hitched a ride, just like Disney, the ride where the ghost thing, where they hitch a ride. They did. And I said, and I was on stage. I said, I'm going to do it. I said, these people cannot go home with whoever they're with. They cannot. I would not be doing it. I said, did someone go to Williamsburg lately? And a woman raised her hand. I said, did you look at the candle section when they were making the candles? And you really admired the culture? And she's like, yeah. I said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but you have 2 people over here that came back with you. I said, how long when did you go? She goes, a week ago. So these people have been with her a week. I said, would you like for me to get rid of them? And she's, yes. I'm like, right answer. They didn't look malevolent at all. They just looked really dull and confused. But what was really freaking cool, they were standing in the back of the audience. Now, like it sat like 500 people, and they're watching the happy spirit people, the ones that are higher level from heaven, going, "Hey!" And they were like, they were just looking really slow, like, they were fascinated by the ones that have graduated to the higher levels. And they were just looking at them, and they were gray looking. They just looked very grayscale. And he had on the little knickers and the funny pointed triangular hat, and she had on it looked like a shower cap, whatever those things were back then, and a long dress. And I said, "You're a long way from home. I think it's time you go back." And I visualized where they were, and they were shocked that I saw them. I said, "It's okay." I didn't cross them over at that point because that's too much, and they might not want to do it. But that's what they look like to me. They're stuck more on a vibration of here, and they're not because we're nothingness. So they have not gone on to their next levels.
It's interesting that you pointed out that they looked gray. Do all ghosts look gray? And do they also look solid, or do they look a little transparent?
I think it's two things. I think it's the perception of the person looking at them. I'm a mental and physical medium, also an evidential medium. So I've trained 8 years in mediumship when I finally decided to come out. And so it's also the ability of the person. Maybe they see them in half or part. So you've got that energy, the person observing, and then you've got the ability of the person wanting to project themselves in this world to you. I feel like the ones that you can see it depends. Usually the stuff that you see in hauntings is usually more than one. So the energy's either being collected and coming from the people, and then it's helping them manifest, or there's more than one spirit beings, or not to get into the darker stuff. Sometimes darker things help with that, which I can see that too, which is good. I can see angels and demons. The good news is there. If something's weird, I don't go there. I stay away. Yeah. I'm like, not a good place. I think I'll leave. But the way that I look at it is there's always things around us, right? Good, bad people, whatever. And we naturally just sort of gravitate toward where we need to go. We don't really worry about it. And it's the same thing in the spirit world.
Okay. It's interesting. This is a little bit off subject, but you had mentioned this earlier, and maybe we can talk about it now. You said something about having after effects of NDEs. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I want to talk about the after effects, but is it possible we talk about the really, really big NDE I had?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Let's go. Because this is going to explain a lot of the after effects. So when I was 5, we moved where we were in Hickory to Raleigh, North Carolina. And my mom was working part-time, some as a secretary or whatever, administrative. And there was a radio station there at this point. I'm being adopted. And we left. It was a couple hours or so from where I lived from Hickory, which my grandparents were very supportive of me. So we left that. So during this time, it started at 3.5 years old. But during this time, and you didn't ask this, but I've decided to say this. And people, I think it's important with healing because people, NDEers, they look at, you can do all these things. They suffered a lot. These people had shitty lives, if I can say that.
Sure.
I don't know. Have you noticed a lot of you interview a lot, don't you? It's not easy.
Right.
They don't have easy lives. So just FYI. And so I was being sexually molested this whole time by this stepdad. And I was a little kid, so I didn't really have the words. I don't want to be with them. I don't want to be here. I want to be in my room. So I didn't really have the words. I don't like them. So I used to pray at night because my grandmother said, pray to Jesus. So boy, did he answer. And so I did. And I said, I used to pray, will you just kill him? I didn't really know what that meant because I was a kid. Wow. And I was like, well, okay. Because I didn't know there was something bad about that. And I said, well, it's okay. You can just take me. And so I was hoping and willing myself to die. And I remember seeing the clock and what time and how ill I was. And I had really bad strep throat this particular night. And it became it was like it started a day before, and then the next day it became worse very quickly. And to the point that my fever went to 103.9. If you, and by the way, if anyone thinks they could have had an NDE or there are after effects that we'll talk about that are, say, common, but it's things to look for. They can, people listening, they can look at a time maybe where they don't remember a couple days. I'm not saying they might have had an alien encounter, or that they had a high temperature where something happened. My family never talked about this at all. And so, it was never brought up. All I knew was I had a sore throat and went to not the emergency room, but like the urgent care. I don't know anything else. So I kept having things come out through life. But what happened is I got this fever. I remember my mom was trying to feed me food and my lungs were collapsing. She didn't know she's trying to feed me a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup. I didn't want that. So then she had, my stepdad go out and get, I don't know why, chocolate ice cream and milk, which I was lactose intolerant, not a good idea. And so to make a milkshake sounds good. And so when he comes back, I'm worse. And he goes, we've got to take her to the hospital. And he's like, no. So they call the hospital. They argue a lot over that. And he goes, we don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. My grandparents did. They had lied. He was just kind of being a jerk. So what happened is I got worse. And so I still remember this. It was shocking. I was burning up and they put me in a tub full of ice because this is what they got on the phone. And they said, do that. And that was shocking. And I was still burning up. And so I remember my mom tried to put me in bed before that. And I would soak the entire bed. And she called, they did that. So they said, you got to bring her. So when I did, I was pushing 105. And so when we were not allowed, no one was allowed to go out that night because it was the day that Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. So there were riots. They had National Guard. It was not a good time for America, but it was, you weren't allowed to go out. So he had a press car, with the radio station stuff on it and everything. So he took that and we were in there. He was driving and then my mom was holding me. And as we were going, I could see the highway and everything. I started losing consciousness. And then she started giving choice words. If my daughter dies, it's explicit. So what happened is I do, and I go above the car and I'm watching the whole, like the car trip from above. And then I'm seeing the fires in the background. I can see the fires in the city of Raleigh. And we go to the first barricade and it's a soldier. It's National Guard. They had these little like MPs or something on their arm. And so I'm watching this whole thing. Now I'm back in the car, but I'm not watching it in my body, even though I'm in the car. And he said, yeah, my daughter's really sick. Of course, we wouldn't officially adopt me at that point, but said, my daughter's really sick. And he goes, okay, well, I'll call ahead. So they called ahead to the MPs because they have barricades each step of the way. And so the hospital expected us. So when I got there, I was watching my body from way above. And I was just watching. I was kind of emotionless. I was like, I was just watching, observing. And they put me in on a stretcher. They carried me in. I'm watching it all from above. I'm in the hospital in the ceiling watching this whole thing. And again, just mildly interested. And they when I get in the door, they rate me as being unresponsive and then code blue for at least 15 minutes. I don't know how long this went on. I don't know. I think it was a lot longer. And so why that happened, that was when I first got there. I decided to tour the hospital as a spirit. And even in life, I like talking to people. So in the hospital, I'm like spirit, talking to the spirits. Hey, how's it going? You come here much? And they're looking at me like, some people that might have had, this is not an evaluation, but there was an older African-American lady and she's like, little girl. And she was so upset. She couldn't understand why she was still conscious and aware. And I just smiled. I said, it's okay. I thought she would figure it out. But some people, when they think a certain way about their religion, they don't understand, like, why am I still thinking? Why am I still here? why am I not hanging out with Jesus yet? I mean, look, these things aren't always immediate. You might hang around for a while and talk to your family, get some things, it's all fine. But yeah, so I felt free, and I was zooming around the hospital in spirit. And then I go back to the emergency room and look at them working on me. And they were saying so much CCs, and they were taking liquid out of my chest. I was never told anything like this at all. Matter of fact, I confronted my mom 2 years ago. She was not really happy, but I said, yeah, you never really told me, She goes, I don't want to talk about it. I said, well, it's okay. I'm fine. I'm here. But yeah, I was never told. So while I was zooming around the hospital, I saw different time periods. I saw, it looks like maybe mid-30s, some nurses, and they look like candy strappers. They look those shoes that look like orthopedic shoes that the nurses would wear with a little heel on them from like the 30s. They had that on. And then I saw a policeman that was painting the door. These are spirit people painting the door. No, it was a handyman painting the door. And then, because he said, isn't it a dandy day? But then there was a policeman walking through the hall, and kind of like, like the stick. They're just, what I think is, they probably like their jobs and they're just hanging out some. I don't think they're ghosts. I think I think they were interactive. So obviously it's not a residual, and they said, hey to me, and they weren't creepy. I just think they like their job and they think they're helping. It sounds strange, but I think they like it. Then I went back to the room to check on my body, and there were two spirit Catholic people. I knew they were Catholic because the way they were dressed, and she had a rosary, and he had a special kind of hat on, and the woman said, "Blessed are the innocent." And I think I was dead, at that point. I really didn't care because it felt free. And then all of a sudden, I'm in that room, and I look down immediately. Immediately, I was in a place that looked like paradise, and the colors were beautiful. And beside me, to my right, holding my hand, kneeled down. It was Jesus. He was beautiful. He was so friendly. He was so beautiful. And he had my hand. He had they never show his teeth. He's got really good teeth. He's got, really good teeth. He was very glowy. And his eyes just look at you with so much love. And he had my hand, and he had a rope belt on, and he had a tunic. And he just radiated, and he said, I have something for you. So I'm a little kid. No, he said, well, first of all, he said, you have to go back. And I looked, and I was in this, it looked like a pasture. And there were children that were on seesaws that were going up and down. And I said, well, they're here. Why can't I be here? So I began to argue with Jesus, which my husband's like, that totally makes sense. You'd think that I was a little difficult. And he goes, no, but you have to. And I said, well, I don't. I saw it. And I was like, I knew that I was home. It was so beautiful. And he said, okay, you can stay a little bit. He said, but I have something for you. And I said, a toy? At this point, I'm 5 years old. So he said, no. And he takes off of his rope belt. It was like a twine off of his belt, and he puts it around. It wasn't fancy. It was at all. And he wrapped it around my left wrist. And he said, I wrap you in my love, protection, and wisdom. He said that, through the big things, he said, through the small thing. Yeah, through the big things, the small things would be done, and through the small things, the bigger things would be acknowledged. And then he said that I could ask him questions, and so we walked around for a little bit, and he began to show me my mom, kind of like that movie with Jimmy Stewart, where you can oh, look at your family. If you did this is what would have happened. He was showing me that. And I could see it. It was just like, I don't know how I could just see it. And I could see her in the hospital crying, and she was so beautiful. And she had long blonde hair, and she's sitting here crying, and she's like, go sit down, my stepdad. And And she says, she needs you. And I'm like, oh, she'll be okay. Because I was totally complete in this place. And I'm like, she'll get over it. She'll be fine. Now we joke about it. I'm like, sorry, Mom, Jesus wins. Sorry. But he said, no, she needs you. She needs you to show her love. And I said, well, I don't know how to do that. He said, there's really no right or wrong way to do that. And then we walked, and as we walked, and every blade of grass had life. And it was so green, it was like lime green. It was just green. And the flowers, everything had the petals, everything had life, and they all followed him. Even the clouds followed him. Because I was thinking, does he know they're all following him? I was thinking, does he know that? And so he's walking and they're all falling. So we sit under this tree, and it's a rock there. He said, we can sit here. It was a big rock under this tree. And I knew, and I don't know how, but I just knew that I couldn't go past this tree, or I couldn't come back. Anyway, he said, this tree is very wise. We don't eat from it. And I was thinking, well, I wasn't planning on eating from it. But we sat there, and what the tree looked like, it looked like kind of like a magnolia or a cherry blossom. And it had red, it looked like grapes on it. So it was pretty, but it looked edible too. And I think now it's the tree of life, because he said this tree is really important, but it took me a long time to figure that out. And so he asked me, he said I could ask him anything. And then he began to tell me stuff. He said that we manifest the same way in heaven and earth. We manifest through our words and through our intention. And that I should be mindful of my words because they have power behind them, and that on earth it takes longer to manifest. So we need to make sure that we keep, I guess he didn't say it this way, but keep on the things you really want. But I guess it would be like positive, because you got to keep that flow going, because it takes kind of a while. He said, but here it's instant. I said, like how? And he said, well, you think of something as instant. If you want to do something, they do things over there. I mean, it's just like here, except no garbage, or we don't get old. And so I thought of him. I said, well, okay, can I try it? He's like, yeah. So I thought about being in a little boat. We were in a little boat in the water, and some fish came up to him, and he picked one up out of the water with his right hand, and he said hello to it, and then he put it back down, because this is how we fish here. And so, and I can tell you through readings that they do stuff there because they give me evidence of stuff they're doing. They're like, oh my God, they always wanted to do that. So they do things there. And so we talked and we walked, and I really didn't want to leave him. I asked him a lot of questions, and he said I had to go back. So when he said I had to, I'm back. Like, no choice, I'm back. But I cheat. I don't go on my body. I go around the hospital and kind of act like an angel and go around helping people. And like a lady that she was giving birth was dying, and I told her to stay there for her child. And some old guy, his water was empty, and so no one was filling his water up. So I knocked it over so someone would get him new water. And then finally a man showed up, Dr. Tippin, and he had a bald head and bow tie, kind of looks like, I don't know, like the Muppet doctor. And he said, little girl, you've got to get back in your body. And he feels like he was like an administrator there at one point. And I said, I'm still here. He goes, no, you have to get back in. And I wouldn't listen. So Jesus showed up and said, you need to get in your body. And I went, that's going to hurt. I don't want to do that. And he said, I have it prepared for you. And next thing you know, I'm in there. Like I had no choice. And I look, and I'm in a tent, a respirator tent. And my mom is there. My stepdad's in a chair, and my grandparents are there. And I woke up. After that, it was even more enhanced. I saw spirit people, and I could totally see even more so than before. And didn't really know what to do with that. So I shelved it for a long time, because what do you do with that?
Right.
And then quickly at 10, I had I got hung, when I was on a family vacation in Myrtle Beach. I was 10 years old, and I got hung under some guys playing volleyball. You know how you swim underneath? They didn't know I was there, so I couldn't get up. So I started hearing a choir of angels in the water, like parting down below and light coming through. And I thought, oh no, not again. And then next thing I know, they're taking the lifeguards like I'm coughing up water. And so I didn't fully recall going really too many places there. And then then when I was 28, then I had a reaction to it was a migraine pill. It was just one pill. And that one was really kind of interesting because it wasn't anything like before. I took it, went to sleep. It's like an alarm went off within me, and I woke up, but I couldn't speak. I don't know why my motor skills couldn't work. I was having a reaction. I couldn't wake up my husband. I literally could not talk. I felt like I was being raised from the dead, like Frankenstein, because I could not really, it's like I was forcing myself. It was very awkward. And I went and sat where the TV is, and I turned it on. It was probably 4 a.m, and I turned it on. Mm-hmm. And I thought, if I can focus on that TV, what they're saying, my mind will work. And then all of a sudden I heard this in my ears, this, and then I started getting really frightened. And then I did not know my name. I did not know I was male or female. Mm-hmm. And then I started seeing my furniture turn into lines, like the Matrix.
Wow.
Everything was a line held together by construct. And I thought, and I think what that was is I was looking at it in a spirit form, not at the higher levels where, there's different levels. Come to find out later, that's actually one of the hemisync levels at the Monroe Institute. Who knew? I don't know. But I saw the white lines. And then I certainly after that didn't care. And then I was like in the galaxy. But then I saw myself sitting there. And then I kept pushing my finger in my leg because I thought, I have one pill. I am not dying over this. This is stupid. This is stupid. It's not like, I can recover. And I did that till my consciousness came back. Why, and I'm going to go into the after effects, but why I think that I had so many is A, I like it there. Mm-hmm. And B, it's like I felt like I was going and reporting for service, like I was, I got my orders and came back. That's what it feels like. So, I definitely feel like I agreed to that. Mm-hmm. And I also felt like this world was so difficult because people don't always tell the truth. They do mean things to one another. And it just felt like it gave me strength to be surrounded by so much love. And I forgot to warn you because it's so automatic with me that I have a lot of spirit activity when I do radio and stuff and a lot of equipment problems.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. You don't worry about it. All right. So that was an amazing story you just told. If you don't mind, what are those after effects you were telling me about?
Well, I think that I'm going to tell you from my perspective what I feel the after effects were with me, and some of them do crossover with other people, or if you've heard them before with them. I would say that number one is a misconception of time. It's very hard. I have to be very conscious of the time because I can slip between time very quickly, and time I don't have a reference for because I was in that spirit form. So I have to, in this world, like really, I have clocks all around me. I don't wear them because I stop batteries, but I have to really be conscious, and I have to make that a literal thing. The other would be from some of the things that I personally have gotten, and stopping batteries is another one that comes up. Many people that have NDEs, they have after effects, whether they're great at numbers, they're intuitive, they're natural healers. For me, how it came out is that I didn't see it as a gift at the time, but seeing the spirit people and seeing the different dimensions, then I started seeing like beings that were like angels and the darker stuff. The darker stuff is usually when I would see it in the ceiling at night. And I just recognized them, and then I would pray, and then it would go away. There's just different dimensions. That's all. And so for me, it helped me with discernment and knowing energy, if it's good or bad. The other thing is with the spirit people, I began also to see angelic hosts around me. So I didn't really always have the best direction growing up. So my spirit family, I would say Team God, my guides, my angels, and Jesus has always talked to me. I still get him channeled now, which I was telling you, I have that Jesus Speaks on the YouTube. This is a limited, like 14, 15, that's it. That he had a message that I want you to say, and I did. But he is a great teacher and friend, but he tells me information so I know exactly either about my life, what I need to do, or the future. That's always been really handy. The mediumship, the psychic things, knowing one of the other, I guess, supernatural abilities is remote viewing, where I can be somewhere else and describe a situation. I use that in readings a lot. And it's really handy, like if I can't be somewhere, or if I'm working, which I have worked on cases like crime stuff. I don't necessarily like it, because if I can't get the person in time or help them, I feel really bad about it, especially as a child. So I think I'm a little too, I'm not affected in readings at all when any other time, except for like cases like that. So I don't think that's necessarily, even though I'm good at it, my bag. But doing the remote viewing helps. So the remote viewing, I can go into a trance. I train 8 years with evidential British trained mediums like Tony Stockwell. I'm certified by Lisa Williams. I've trained with John Holland and Janet Novak. Studied a lot of different styles, but with the evidential British style of mediumship in this world, people, they just want evidence, where you do a reading, you go, your grandmother's saying this, there's some pearls and a scarf and blah, blah, blah. It's in the attic. And the person usually goes, I don't know. I say, well, I don't know either. I'm just telling you what they're telling me. And then later they find 2 days later, that box. It's always so cool when I get the email or the picture of it, because it's validating to me. I think, oh, that's so cool. But spirit can do a lot of things. They've taught, there's different languages that have come through to me in readings, even public readings. And the person understands that I've spoken Egyptian, Vietnamese, Portuguese, Dominican Republic, Spanish. I can't think what else. Maybe, French from Normandy, France. And I really don't speak any other language except, I always say, Southernese. And sometimes I speak broken English if I need to know where the bathroom is. But that it's evidential of that spirit person coming, because I hear them phonetically talking. So I'll repeat it. And it's usually something really beautiful. Like there was a medium demonstration I was doing, and there was a beautiful grandmother coming through, Hispanic, and this fella stands up, a nice looking Hispanic guy, and he's crying because it's my grandmother. I said, she's like a saint over there. He goes, yeah, she was like that here. I said, she's talking about taking care of all, her grandkids, all the kids in the neighborhood, and the kind of food she cooked for them. And then mentioned some childhood memories with him, which was really cute. Cowboy and Indian stuff, what he used to like doing, his little outfits. And then I said, do you understand Spanish? She goes, yes. And I said, she's saying something in Spanish, but look, if I tell you and if I destroy your language, if I mess it up, just forgive me, because I'll just do my best, but I'll give it a go if you're willing to try with me. And he was like, okay. So she said whatever she said. And I asked him, did that mean anything? And he said that what it meant in Spanish, it was Dominican Republic Spanish, that what it was her saying, she always said, is that all people are God's children, and they all come to him at the foot of Christ. And I was like, wow, I said that's amazing. So they say pretty things when they do say something. They're all like real meaningful and sentimental. So I think that spirit moving through us, through all of us, it's our natural state. I mean, you look at music, look at the Beatles. To me, that's all channeled because it's still popular today. There's something about it makes people feel good. Writings, they're also channeled. But I can go into a trance in a minute and I'll just be talking and laughing. People have no clue, but people that know me go, remember you said, and I'm like, no, they go, oh, okay, you went to a trance, but because I'm in control of it. And I have had different ascended beings like Mother Mary, Jesus. I've had some saints come through, which I never really knew about saints. So it's kind of cool because I have to look them up when they come through. So they're they're just different. There's just different dimensions and just different levels of abilities. And I think also working with energy. One of the things that I like to do is, like, when I do shows, is I will make myself bigger and fill the room. I'll ask God to fill me up, and then I expand out, and then I ask him to heal everyone. I ask the angels to be there. And I thought, well, why not work with the whole thing when I just have everybody okay? And I do that because energy can transfer, anywhere. So, I mean, I do readings all over the world. Spirit doesn't need to be in a chair. Same thing with us, like with you doing the show, with you communicating and putting a message out there. It's sending an energy out there that hopefully is very positive. That's helping people.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So if people want to contact you, are you public? Like, do you have a website, and do you chat with people, or a Facebook page?
Yes, I do. I have the best way to get a hold of me is to go to southernbellmedium.com. And if they would like to do a reading, I do it all over the world. I do life path, psychic medium, life path, soul path, soul discovery. It's a little deeper, and it's good. It takes a little bit longer, as well as I have different social media stuff, but Facebook took me down July 26th because they said I'm a Christ channeler. They didn't like that word. I'm serious.
What?
I haven't been back. I had 5,500 followers. Can you believe that?
And they said you were a what?
No, I put in my bio Christ channeler, and I'm also a Christian minister. Yeah,
and they took you down for that?
They censored me down.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I still have. So if you look at me, it's like they erased my identity. I had 5,500 people. Crazy. And then they had on Southern Bell Medium, they left that, but they changed me to a motivational speaker, which I've never called myself that in my life. I'm an evidential medium and Christ channeler. But anyhow, so I'm a minister. But then I do, the little Seeking Heaven YouTube thing like you do, because I just like to chat with other NDErs. And it's been very soulful. It's been, it's community like you. You're building a community.
Yeah.
Of like-minded people. And I just think, God bless you for doing that and having me. I mean, it's, we need something positive these days. And people, it's funny, I've been getting from people lately that they're going through, they're evolving and they're changing and they're questioning, and they're so afraid to be their true self, and they maybe don't fit in a box. I don't fit in a box, but I'm a good person. I'm very likable. I love God, but I don't fit in a box. I don't fit in a box.
Right.
And a lot of people don't either. So I think I'm like the underdog of the spiritual things, because I don't follow a particular, I have definite beliefs and I have a lot of faith, but I just feel like you should follow your own heart and be true to yourself, and that you should not label yourself or have other people do that for you.
Well, I've done quite a few NDEs, and I don't think any one of them have been the same. So, I don't think you can put anybody in a box.
I agree. Well, we put ourselves in a box and other people, and I think that it's time for us all to spiritually be mature and be kind to one another, and allow everybody to just experience themselves and their own soul. And, you don't have to have an ND to have this thing. I mean, there's lots of people that have spiritually transformative experiences, or they could lose someone they really love and it rocked their world. There's plenty of people that love someone so much, their person. And when their person dies, they still miss them and long for them and want to communicate, that they start getting spirit communication. A lot of mediumship happens that way too.
All right. So your book, Love from Heaven, is that available everywhere, like Amazon and Google Books and all those places?
Thank you for asking, Jeff. Love from Heaven is still being edited to put on there. So it's not quite ready yet. So working on that. That's almost done. I want to go back in and put some photographs in it and to do some extra stuff. So working on that to finish it up. And so it is really the lessons that I've learned. So Love from Heaven, my 6 years of experiences, and also the wisdom that I learned. So the things that I took from all these things and what I assess that to be. And then I'm also doing a lot of mediumship, and I'll be doing webinars and as far as a school online for just regular people. this, and you don't have to join a clique. It's just regular people that want to know about intuition or mediumship or want to grow spiritually in a safe space. So I'm working on that. So it would be the International School of Spiritual Wisdom. That's the school. And I have a little happy owl. So I've been working on that because I just feel that regular people are extraordinary. You don't have to be, they have so many hidden gifts in there. I mean, we're all spiritual beings. And I just didn't want to have something that was just for people that were psychic or medium or this or that or healers. I didn't want that. I wanted it to be something for everybody to develop and to feel like they are part of this whole spiritual growth. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a movement going on right now. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Not the stuff on TV. Yeah. This stuff is good.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we wrap it up, do you have one last message that you can leave the audience with?
Yes, I do. And I wish I could own this because it's really good. But Jesus told me this recently. He told me this summer. And of course, he's told me before in the past, be love, give love, receive love, right? Some people are better at certain parts of that. But this summer, he told me this, and I think about it a lot. It's so simple. He said, be the love you were created to be. Be the love you were created to be. So I think we're leaving a lot on the table. Yeah. So what does that mean? That's kind of big if you really kind of meditate on that.
Yeah. I was trying to think about that. How do you determine how much love you were created to be?
Exactly. If you think about it, you're an endless spiritual being. Be, that means do it. Be, live it. Be the love you were created to be. I mean, there's a lot more in there. There's a lot more in there. So when you meditate on it, it starts doing something to you. I think those words are living because the more I meditate on it, something starts to open like a key. So I think it's a key to your soul. So try it. Try to meditate. Be the love you're created to be, and think what that means. And it you'll get high. I'm telling you, it's good. Yeah. But I think the words are living when he told me that, because I've been meditating on it, and it is powerful, because I don't think we know even a percentage of how valuable we are to each other and to this world, and especially to God. I mean, we're really loved. I just wish we all knew that.
Yeah.
And like I always say, we all have a fan club in heaven. They're rooting for us over there because they've already done their job. They're content. They're really content. Just like I was, it's fine. They're content. They're happy. But this is not always easy here. There's a little bit of a fight here. Sometimes there's a struggle, right? So they're cheering us on, and it comes through all the time, again and again. And the message I get from the spirit world is the same thing over and over again. Don't have regrets. Live your life fully and go for it, and don't hold back. You're not here that long.
Yeah. Those are great messages. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for giving me this time this evening. I really, really appreciate it.
You're awesome, Jeff. You're doing something really positive, and I appreciate that. So I thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And you are awesome, and you were an awesome guest today.
Oh, well, you're an awesome host. So hopefully we'll do some fun things, maybe some mediumship fun things in the future. And I wish you really well. We're
just going to go back and forth. You're awesome. No, you're awesome. No, you're awesome.
We're like those little squirrels, like Chip and Dale. No, you're great. No, you're great. No, you go first. So anyway, well, that sounds great. Well, look, yeah. And if someone wants to join, I am going to be giving free readings. Okay. I didn't want to mention that. Right. So if they want to come to my website, southernbellmedium.com, that's Bell, BELE, southernbellmedium.com, sign up for the newsletter, say I want a free reading, and I'm going to be doing Medium Mondays. I'm going to be doing some free readings at least once a month, maybe more. But I want people to see this working and how healing it is.
And maybe you'll come back on our show sometime and do some free readings here if you're interested.
I would love that. I would love to see God expressing himself through me in this way to people to help them, and what a love flow it is, and how it's not scary and it's not creepy. It's beautiful.
All right. anybody who's listening, if you want a free reading, go ahead and put it down as a comment, and we'll see how many people who are interested.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Give it a go. I'm willing to share the love and any kind of beautiful messages. So thank you so much, and you've been great.
Oh, thank you. And have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.